Now, artists, if you enjoy Draw and Paint What You Regret on YouTube and you would like to show your support, you can find Cash App and Venmo information below. This channel is free to watch and learn from. If you like any of my art products, please go to mpbimage.com to purchase. If you purchase, make sure you leave a comment so my product maker know that you've purchased from the YouTube link. I am going to pull up the actual sphere, and I think I should open it up in preview. And the reason why I'm doing this is because we need to clearly understand what we're seeing, because we have to transfer over shapes to our sphere. So we want to make sure we understand what we're seeing. So our actual shadow edge is here. So this is our shadow edge that's here. So we want to make sure we're paying attention to where our shadow edge is, because that's important, because we know that everything from our shadow edge from here on down is going to be our shadow family. So our light mask side is here. So we want to make sure you're paying attention to that as well. So if we're looking overall at our sphere, we could clearly say we have a either white sphere or a very light sphere in color, maybe a pale yellow. It's very light if we're looking at it. So if we can easily say, okay, this is a white sphere. So that is our local value of our overall sphere. So when it comes to our light source is coming from this 45-degree angle from the left. So that's important because we want to make sure where we're going to place in our highlight. So here's the thing, this is a photo. Photos do not give us all the information. And unfortunately, as artists, we got to plug in the information for it to make sense to our viewers. So we have to keep that in mind. So if our light source is coming from this direction, you want to draw in a little circle in this area, because that is going to be your value 1. That is going to be your highlight. So from here, we have to start to move away from the light. So that means we're going to move into our value 2, and then we're going to move into our bridge, which is our value 3. So look at the overall shape that we're seeing for our value 2 and our bridge. So you see how it's wrapping around that sphere for the value 2, wrapping around the sphere for the value 3 that's there. So you want to make sure you're paying attention to that when you are hatching. From here, we're going to move into the core. So we want to pay attention to the shape of the core. So you see here on this side, it's expanding. So it's a very wide kind of triangle shape, very wide. Then it starts to compress in this area that's here. And then it gets lighter, right? And then it starts to almost disappear, but not really. So that is our core. So it's wider on the right side, and it's very narrow when it comes to the left side. So that's our core. And then we want to think about where our reflected light is. So looking at this image, it's safe to say that our reflected light that's here is more of a oval shape that's here. So this is our reflected light. So that means that we want to make sure that our reflected light is darker than our bridge. So this darkest midtone, this needs to be darker than that. So this is how photos can give us the wrong information. So if we're really looking at this reflected light looks lighter than the bridge. So just want to stick to the rule and make it darker because it is in shadow. So when we look at the other shadow shapes that's around our core, you can see that we get a little bit more of a darker value than our reflected light in this shape that's here. And then it's also darker value as we start to move away from our reflected light. So these shapes we want to make sure we're paying attention to. That way when we're rendering. When we start to round out and we start to turn into that pit, you start to see this little line here that gets a little bit of dark, very dark, because that sphere is turning away. And then here is our pit. So this is going to be our value 5 that's here. This is the actual shape that we're seeing. So that's our value 5. We're also seeing 4s and 3s in this area. It's almost a ring that we're seeing too that's here. So pay attention to that. We do see a 4 that's here, and then we start to see some 3s and 2s and some it fades out is what I'm saying. So you just want to make sure that you're paying attention to these shapes, what values you're attaching to, and we want to stay true to our light logic principles. are there any questions before you guys start to move into the rendering?